And what is up, everybody? I am Joe DeHoyos. I am host of Beyond the Woodline. Um, Usually I play my trailer, but I hit the wrong button, so we're not having a trailer today. So anyway, so some of you guys may or may not know that I am more involved with the Bigfoot world, and I am part of the JRG, which is a Jevning Research Group. Um, it's headed up and founded by Mr. William Jevning. He's a great guy. He's been in the field, man, close to 50 years now, and we have teams in Minnesota, Florida, New York State, Oregon, California, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Tennessee, Louisiana, of course, here in Texas, where I am, and a few more states. I always miss a few of these states. Um, if you guys are interested in helping out with this search, hit me up at beyond.woodline@gmail.com. We'd be happy to have you. We will vet you, though. We will vet anybody we set you up with because there are unfortunately some crazy people in this world, and we want to keep everybody safe. And I tell everybody also, you should research whoever you're researching with too if you don't know. Research the researcher, right? Um, but yeah, if you guys want to help out, hit me up. If you can't get out into the field, you don't have to. We don't require anybody to go out, twice a month, once a month, 4 times a year. You get out when you can. And if you're just unable to, you can do your research from your laptop, your computer, your cell phone. You can find locations, find witnesses for us, even give us suggestions on techniques. We're always willing to listen to that. And yeah, once again, just hit me up at beyond.woodline@gmail.com and man, we'll get you started. And with all that being said, like I always say, you guys don't tune in to hear me ramble off at the mouth. Um, Tonight's guest is Dan LaFave. Mr. Dan, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Man, thanks a lot for coming on. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it, man. And
yeah,
uh, it's you and your wife who own the Old Park Hotel, correct?
that is correct.
Yeah, yeah, and that even makes it more exciting. I was real happy that you were responded to me when I sent you the message. Um, yeah, so real quick, why don't you give some people a little bit of background information about you and what got you into the world of the paranormal?
Well, in a nutshell, um, probably got into paranormal a good 35 years ago, and my story's really unique because I was Air Force security police, worked in restricted areas, and basically going out every night doing our thing, and paranormal back then wasn't even a thing. Uh, if you saw something weird, people were like, "That's just your imagination." Blah blah blah. Wasn't even anything on TV. So this particular night, one of our restricted areas, a woman appeared, and she didn't just appear; she actually went through two of our fences and captured on camera and everything. And it wasn't just me; it was other security police members. We reacted like we normally would, with the real person situation, but she was very strange. She bloody, looked like something was wrong. She was acting very strange. She was solid. She looked like a real person. Um, to really describe the way it happened is she kept reappearing and disappearing, and we were engaging her, and it's a big area, and she set off alarms, went through fences. She did things that a person just can't do, and she was carrying something the whole time, and we're trying to figure out what that was in the beginning. So that we're basically chasing her, and she's reappearing, disappearing, and finally she disappears in this whole back area of the restricted area, and we were like, what did we just deal with? What did we just see? She just like vanished, and we end up going through debriefing, military debriefing, and they basically were telling us at the time that it never happened,
Oh,
and which is really hard to tell for guys that witnessed something like that, that we didn't just see what we saw. And I kind of kept this inside for decades, for two reasons. You have a clearance in the military. We're talking high restricted areas. but at the same time, security police force members, we witness a lot of strange things. We really do. And you'll see a lot of reports from various people. I've even had a run in with being recruited for Area 51 back in the day.
Mhm.
Just a lot of strange things. But, you kind of keep these things inside. And I have a lot of law enforcement friends. And a friend of mine talked me into telling that story finally in a more public way, because I had told him way before. And he's like, this is a really compelling story. So he ended up getting me in touch with producers of the television show Paranormal 911. And make a long story short, they contacted me, told them about my story, and within 2 weeks they were flying me to film,
Oh no.
basically. And went up and filmed everything. And the crazy thing about it was, I didn't know how popular this episode was going to be. They ended up opening up season two with this episode,
Oh wow.
and it is out there, for everybody to watch. Basically, you just gotta stream, off of Discovery Plus, or I think it's on some other platforms. But basically, it's the first episode of season two, called Perimeter Breach.
Okay.
And it's just, I'll be here all night if I describe the whole thing to you. I don't
Right.
want to
Yeah.
go into all the detail, but I would just recommend that people go watch that episode because it's very crazy, and they got it down pretty good with the way that it happened. It gave me heebie-jeebies just thinking back on everything. And basically, that got me going 35 years ago, because got out of the military, started just exploring the paranormal on my own at that point. And the paranormal wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a an area. It was the word paranormal wasn't even used back in the day. It was
Mm.
supernatural.
Right.
They really didn't even know what to label it. And that the word paranormal finally evolved to culminate all these strange things, which is a huge area. It
Mm.
covers Bigfoot, cryptids, UFOs, ghosts, hauntings, you name it.
Mm.
Anything strange is in that paranormal category.
Mhm.
So I started doing research. I just started reading lots of books. I still have a big library of paranormal books, because back that was before the internet. That's the only way you could get information.
Right.
Nowadays you just type it in and you can search for things, but I didn't even know how to even approach what we have witnessed, and what we had dealt with. So I just started. It opened the door. I just started exploring on my own. Eventually, I met my wife, Connie, and she's actually an Army veteran. So, we hit it off. We're both military, ex military, and we're also both teachers now. We're both high
Okay.
school teachers, after doing many different things. But before I met her, I was the lead investigator on some Texas teams. And then that's how I met her.
Mhm.
She came onto the team, and many years ago, we just had a lot in common, and we ended up disbanding from those teams, and we ended up moving down into deep South Texas on the Texas Mexico border. And we lived down in Harlingen for several
Okay.
years where she was teaching. So we ended up forming our own paranormal team while we were down there, called Graveyard Shift Paranormal Investigations. And this was around 2008 when we formed that team. And we had some really good members. We consider it a family. We're still in contact with a lot of the former members, even though the team doesn't exist anymore.
Mm.
One of our members was an active duty police detective on the team with us.
That's nice.
So we had a lot of credibility,
Yeah.
on that team. And we used to go up and down the Texas Mexico border, doing private residential, doing some public locations. And we used to take out television stations like Telemundo with us. And it's really funny when you take out these news stations, because they want to do the story so bad. They want to come out with you. They can't wait to do it, but they come out with a skeptical point of view.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're trying to prove you wrong,
Right.
but it's still an adventure. And it's funny when the cameraman, you start seeing things fly out of their hands, and the cameraman's eyes get really big when you're in a haunted location and these
Mhm.
things start happening, because that brings the realism, of
Right.
everything. And so we used to do that with a lot of different television, news media stations. Newspapers wrote us up. We ended up finally having to quit because we were moving, and we ended up moving up here to West Texas. Now, I'm originally from San Antonio. That's where I was born and raised.
Mhm.
Spent many years, know the Central Texas like the back of my hand. My wife's from this area. When we came up here, I didn't know anything about West Texas,
Right.
especially paranormal. Didn't know a thing. I knew everything about every other area of the state, but this one. There just wasn't a whole lot of information written down. So I started researching, and we moved up here around 2013. And I started looking at haunted locations. We started doing various things. We started getting together with some other teams up here, and we just started doing our normal thing. And then in 2015, I read this article one day. It came out right after Halloween. It's about a 7, 8 page article, very popular article. A lot of people were hitting onto it, internet article. And it talked about the old Park Hotel building in Ballinger, Texas. And it just, something about that story just grabbed me. And I was like, I told my wife, I was like, I need to see this building. And she just kind of looked at me. And I was like, there's something about this building. I'm like, Ballinger is only 30 miles away from us. We never been there before. Didn't know a thing about Ballinger. And I was like, I need to go. So I contacted the owner, and that side of the story is kind of funny because she blew me off like you won't believe when I contacted her. The story was so popular at the time because it was right around Halloween, and it was a great story. Everybody wanted to see this building because of that story. So in her eyes, I was just another, person, and she didn't want to turn the whole thing into a circus, having all these people out. So she pretty much blew me off. We exchanged information. I thought, I'm never going to see this woman again. I said, I'm not going to see this building ever. I'm not going to see what this story is talking about. A month later, she contacts me out of the blue, and she goes, I'm in town. Why don't y'all come up? It was the end of November. Well, that day was the worst possible day you could go see a supposed haunted building. It was misty, foggy, dark, gloomy. You can only see about 10 feet in front of the truck hood. I'm following GPS. Didn't even know where we were going. Couldn't even see down the road. So I come around the corner, and there's this big old building, spooky building glaring at us out of the mist and the fog. And as we're driving up to the building, I looked at Connie and I'm like, are we really going to go inside this thing? And I told her, I said at the time, I said, I feel like we're being watched. I mean, that was just a film we had when we first drove up. Couldn't see anybody, but you just felt like you were being watched big time from the balcony, from the windows. So we walked in, we walked all around this building. Um, the owner was pretty much letting us have our own way, just kind of walk around. And it was an old antique store at the time. So it was full of just lots of junk, lots of antiques, lots of dust, which made it even spookier. Uh, we didn't hear anything, we didn't see anything, but I just felt the whole time I felt like we were being followed. And we came back down the stairs, and the owner met us down at the base of the stairs. And she's like, what do you think? And I said, this building is amazing. I said, I love old buildings, 1800 building. I said, I think I was using the words, the ambiance in here is just incredible. And then I told her, I said, there's something else. I said, I know there's something here, something I can't see, something I can't put my finger on. And she goes, oh, yeah. She goes, they're here. She goes, they're filling you out. And at that point, this is where she said something funny. She looks at me and she goes, the building's for sale. And I turned around. I got to smile. I turned around, looked at my wife who was standing behind me on the stairs. And she's like, "Oh, hell no, we're not doing this today. We're not going to buy a building. We didn't come here to buy a historic building, much less a haunted building."
Right.
Um, so we walked away. We went through a period for a while there where we totally forgot about the building because we went through three deaths. We lost my mom, she lost her mom, and then we lost a brother in law. So the last thing on our minds was a building. We weren't out ever to even look for a building. We weren't even thinking about it. And that's what's funny. You think people go out looking for these places. We weren't. It
Mhm.
was like it kept coming at us. And then like 5 months later, in July, the owner contacts me again, and she goes, "You know, Dan, I've had a lot of people looking at this building. I've had offers." She goes, "I just don't feel comfortable with what these other people were suggesting." She goes, "I feel really good about you and Connie." She's like, "What can we do to make this work?" And in a nutshell, here we are 8 years later. We did it.
Mhm.
When we actually bought the building, we had the deed. The first day we were standing there, we're kind of like, it was like a whirlwind. We were kind of like, now what?
Yeah.
Now we got this big old 10,000 square foot empty building. It was hot. It was July. There was only one air conditioner in the building at the time. It echoed because she had taken out all her stuff. Um, Things started happening from the get go. Haunted things just started spurting off, and uh, everything imaginable that you can imagine from the paranormal, that you hear about the paranormal as far as hauntings, has happened to us and other people. And one of the biggest things the owner told us at the time, 8 years ago, when she was really trying to tell us that she didn't feel comfortable with those other people, she said, "They selected you. They want you to have the building." And I was like, "They?" I'm like, "Who is they?" And she's like, "They." And again, I was like, "Who is they?" And she's like, "The 30 spirits here. They picked you and Connie."
Hmm.
And what's really creepy about that, thinking back to it 8 years ago, it really does seem like the spirits picked us. And
Yeah.
even though we're owners of this building, I mean, it's in our name. We both kind of feel like we're just caretakers in history. You know, like we're just the next in line that got picked.
Right.
You know, and the building, we kind of made these little, um, I don't know, opinions or little comments in the very beginning, because we were just experiencing stuff left and right. Our friends were experiencing things. And everybody at the time was like, this building one of these days is going to be talked about. It was already like a what you call a local legend.
Yeah.
It's like everyone locally knew everything about this building. They knew just how haunted it was, how intensive it was. A lot of people would walk circles around it. They still walk circles around it.
Okay.
The building just had a folklore to it. And it's just taken off over the years. And it's amazing how many people we've had there.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you, but I want to back up just a little bit.
Okay.
When you talked about how you got there, you kind of felt that you were being watched, right? When y'all first showed up, did your wife feel the same way?
Yes.
Okay, she did. Yeah.
All the visitors that ever come to the old park get that feeling.
Okay.
It's like the moment you walk in the front door, the way the owner used to put it, the past owner, she's no longer alive. She used to describe that they're watching you, they're sizing you up. It's like you're walking into somebody's house
Okay.
and you can't
So
see them, you know, and
yeah,
they're feeling you out, you know.
yeah. So do you still get that feeling?
We do.
But
We
I
do.
guess now it's maybe a little bit different.
They're more comfortable with us.
Okay.
But what happens is when groups come in and we're leading them around, it's either myself or Connie. There's always things that happen to the group right from the beginning, and it's almost like the spirits are following us as we're telling all our stories, all our history. and things were happening to the group right there. People start getting touched right from the beginning
Mhm.
a lot of times, and they get these weird feelings, pick up fragrances of weird perfumes,
Right.
pipes, cigars, you name it, everything happens.
Mhm. Yeah. So do you have like one in particular that's like the most, I guess, pronounced, or the one that's always like, I'm here? You know what I'm saying? His
We
presence is always felt.
we do. First of all, when she mentioned years ago about 30 spirits, I was a paranormal investigator, so I looked her back in the eye, and I was trying to be respectful, but I was kind of like, when I first heard that, I was like, 30 spirits? That's not something you hear every day.
Right.
And being a paranormal investigator, I had that skeptical point of view in the very beginning. I could believe maybe two, three, four,
Right.
but somebody's telling you 30. 8 years later, with all the experiences we've had, all the experiences that other people have had, our guests see more stuff than we do
Mhm.
and have more things happen. Uh, we do tend to believe that there are 30 spirits in the
Okay.
building. There's just many different people spot it, many different things happening. One of our most prominent spirits, I guess I could say, is Jim Deacon Miller.
Okay.
Goes by Deacon Jim, has many different names. Uh, his full name is James Brown Miller. Um, he was a very notorious outlaw. Ran all the way through central Texas, and he was rumored to have killed his own grandparents at age 8
Oh,
with a double barrel shotgun. And as a kid, he went to trial. And of course, being age 8, a lot of people were like, oh, he couldn't have done it. He's just a kid. Well, he got off when he was age 8. When he was 14, he got into a altercation with one of his cousins, and I guess didn't like the way the argument ended. And his cousin was taking a nap on the porch. Well, he went and blew his cousin away with a double barrel shotgun. And this time there was evidence.
oh,
So this time he went through court, went through trial, but again, something happened with the technicality, and he got off, even though there was evidence right there that he had killed his cousin. Well, he started a road at that point of being a hired killer.
oh,
And he literally he even said one time he wasn't afraid to take out anybody. And so he just went through central. He was born in Arkansas, but he came over here when he was really young and just went all the way through Texas and killed his grandparents supposedly here, killed his cousin supposedly here. Um, Ends up drifting up to a ranch which was about a little over an hour south of Ballinger, where the hotel is, and went to work for a man called Emmanuel Clement Sr. Manny Clement Sr. as a ranch hand. So he ends up running with Manny. Manny's cousin is there, who is John Wesley Hardin, very well known outlaw as well.
yeah, I've heard the name.
Right. Well, anyway, Manny Clemens and John Wesley Hardin had done a bunch of things already at that point. Uh, were very notorious. Were already suspected of killing a lot of people, stealing a lot of cattle. Manny's ranch was growing like crazy. People were very suspicious. And it's almost like anytime anybody accused him of anything, those people would disappear. It's kind of like that. And his herd just kept growing, and people couldn't figure out, why is your herd so big? It's because they were stealing cattle left and right and upsetting a lot of people. Well, anyway, Manny decides Ballinger gets formed in 1886 from a little settlement called Hutchins. And there were buildings there already, and it's suspected that our building was one of the first buildings, uh, pre existing possibly to when Ballinger was formed in 1886. And it was a 2-story house at the time. And our building's gone through a transformation from being this house that's inside our building to being this 10,000 square foot building now, as they just kept adding to it. It kept getting bigger and bigger. But started off as original 2-story house, and we share those pictures with everybody, on Facebook and everything. Um, so anyway, getting back to the story, right after Ballinger got formed, uh, Manny decides to come up in 1887 and decides to run for office of sheriff, which is really weird for an outlaw. Don't know why he did it, but he did. Maybe he was trying to turn his life around. But the town did not take to him at all. And it's a very hotly contested election. He ended up losing. And shortly after that, there was a saloon next door to us called the Senate Saloon. It's now a restaurant called Alejandra's Mexican restaurant. But back in the day, it was one of the first saloons in Ballinger. Manny was in there drinking one night after losing this election. And the sheriff that actually won comes in with a marshal, and the marshal's name was Joe Townsend. And they come in and they start messing with him. I guess they just didn't want him in town. Well, he knows things are going south really fast, so he goes for his revolver while he's standing at the bar because things are just going bad really quick. He doesn't draw fast enough. Joe Townsend draws faster than he does and shoots him in the left eye and kills him on the spot. Well, anyway, going back to Deacon Miller, Jim Miller. Jim Miller, when he went to work on Manny's ranch as a ranch hand, got to know Manny's daughter, Sarah Sally Miller, and ends up marrying her. So he's basically in the family now. So when Manny gets killed, Deacon doesn't take kindly to that, and he already had a history, a very long history of killing a lot of people, being linked to different things, and getting off. Again, he was a hired killer. So mysteriously, Joe Townsend, the one who killed his father-in-law, 5 weeks later is riding in on a trail coming into Ballinger one night and gets blown off of horseback from the bushes by a shotgun blast, a double barrel. The double barrel was Deacon's signature weapon. That's what he killed everybody with. And everybody knows what kind of damage a double barrel shotgun does, so it's not hard to figure it out. Well, the killer thought that Townsend was dead because he came off the horse really hard. He ends up surviving, but the blast took off his right arm. Had to have the whole arm taken off because it just took everything off. Well, Townsend ends up surviving the blast. Deacon is highly suspected again of doing that. Townsend, at that point, the same saloon that it happened in next door to us became a grocery store. And we have a newspaper article on our wall at the old park that talks about Townsend having to retire from law enforcement because he lost his arm and he's working in this grocery store. And one night, mysteriously, he gets shot at 2 more times from the back of the grocery store as he's closing by a shotgun, but it missed. And right after that, Deacon leaves town. So it's like you put 2 and 2 together. We kind of feel we don't know truly why Deacon is there. We do know he's there. He may not be there all the time. We think he maybe comes and goes. But when he is there, any groups can tell you he's a very prominent spirit. He's a very cocky spirit. Um, he even stood up. Well, they caught him in Ada, Oklahoma, eventually in 1909. And again, he was thrown in jail, suspected of killing somebody. This time they weren't going to have it. This time a lynch mob went in and took him and 3 other men out of the jail and said, "We're not going to do this again." Took them all in a barn and tied their hands behind their backs, stood them up on barrels, and went one by one and hung them inside this barn. Well, it's said that Deacon was the last one out of the 4 men, and it's said that when they got to him, they said, "Do you have any last words?" And he said, "Let the record stand that I only killed 57 men." He was rumored to have killed 200 and something people. But that was his last words. And then it's said that he kicked his own barrel pail out from under himself and yelled, "Let her rip," and he hung himself.
I think I've heard this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really familiar. I mean, the I've only killed 57 men, not 200. I think I've heard that
It,
before. Yeah.
if they ever made a movie
Hmm.
about Deacon, it would be incredible
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he really, they called him the psycho of the Old West. That's what they called him.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we really believe, and other people believe, that he is in our building. We don't know why. That's where the mystery rests, but he's there.
Hmm.
And he's very cocky and he does a lot of things to people.
Hmm. And so, what about like with you? Do you feel closeness, I guess you could say, or a bond with any of the spirits in particular?
We do. I mean, we treat him like family. I know it
Right.
sounds weird.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
the
no,
pre
it's
the
completely normal
previous
actually.
the previous owner treated all the spirits in the building like they were family,
Hmm.
and I think that's one of the reasons why she was very careful about selecting who was going to take the building over next.
Hmm.
She wanted to go to right people, and when she used that statement that they picked you,
Hmm.
it was eerie. But at the same time, you got to wonder, maybe that's the way it really was.
Hmm.
Maybe they put that thought in her head, and they wanted us. Maybe because of our backgrounds, maybe because we appeal to them a lot better. Um, they mess with us just like they mess with other people. They messed with us a lot, probably a lot more over the beginning years than they do now, but they still get us at times. And the thing about owning a very haunted building like the old park is you don't know what's coming at you next. It's like the moment you let down your guard, you're just going back to the normal routine. That's when they pop off.
Yeah.
And when you're in there by yourself and things happen, yeah, it gets your eyes open that up really quick.
So, has there ever been times when you were like legit scared?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's been several times. One time, this was probably several years now, because like I said, we've had it for 8 years. I want to say about 4 years ago. I was doing work. I would go up there and do work, and we live like 30 miles away. So, you don't want to go back and forth if you're doing work. You want to like stay up there, even though you're a little spooked to sleep in there by yourself. So I was doing work this particular night and staying over there by myself. And usually about 50% of the time, sleeping in that building by yourself, it might feel comfortable. Not much happens. You might hear walking, you might hear a door, but nothing that makes you jump out of your skin. It just gets your attention, has you looking. Well, this particular night though, I walked into the building, it felt different. And sometimes it just feels different. And there's sometimes when you walk in there, you just want to turn around and go right back out the front door because you can't put your finger on it, but it just feels very ominous, I guess is the word.
Mhm.
And this particular day, it felt like that. So I was on edge. I was expecting something to happen the whole time I was there. And I was nervous about going to sleep. I couldn't quite nod off. And finally, about midnight, I was able to go to sleep. I was starting to feel normal again. Nothing was really happening. So I thought, oh, I'm going to be fine. So I went to bed. Well, to this day, I don't know what happened, but I woke up about 4 hours later in a cold sweat. And as soon as I come up out of the bed, I'm sitting in the bed, sweat is just pouring off of me. I had this feeling like I had heard all these things, and that's why I was freaking out. But at that moment, I wasn't hearing anything. So I was kind of thinking when I darted up out of bed, I was like, okay, it must be a nightmare. You're trying to shake it off. You're thinking, okay, something just woke me up. I was just having a nightmare. So I'm about to lay my head back down on the bed. I'm just like nervous, shaking, about to lay back down, trying to relax. And all of a sudden, the noises start happening again upstairs. and it sounded like they were moving furniture in about 5 different rooms. It sounded like they were pushing dressers across the room, heavy pieces of furniture. I mean, it was the most god awful noise I think I've ever heard. And if you would have seen my eyes, I was so freaked out. I jumped out of the bed. I wasn't even dressed. I walked down in the hallway to the base of the stairs. And the funny part about this is, being a paranormal investigator, you would have thought I would have gone up to try to figure out what it was. No, I was
No.
like, the lights were off upstairs, and those noises, those loud noises, was just coming down to me. I went out the front door, and I paced. I paced in front of the building back and forth for about 30 minutes, trying to get my composure back. And I finally calmed myself down enough to go back into the building, and I expected it to happen again, but the building was deadly quiet at that point. And I remember I sat down there for the longest time waiting for it to happen again, and it didn't. So I finally went back to bed. Nothing woke me up. The next morning, I woke up. It's sunny. That's when I decided to go upstairs to try to figure out what was all this. And with all the noises I heard, I would have expected all the furniture to be moved. That's literally what it sounded like. And nothing was out of place upstairs. I went room by room by room by room, and all the furniture was where it needed to be. Everything looked normal. So it's just one of those things.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty strange, especially if to find anything moved, right?
Nothing moved.
Yeah.
It's almost like it didn't even happen. But if you would have heard what I heard, it was unbelievable.
Hmm. So, like when you've had teams come, has any of the teams ever left early?
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
We've
So,
lost people in the middle of the night.
so
That's
tell
one of the
me.
reasons why we have to be there.
Oh,
In the
okay.
very beginning, we were going to kind of do this thing maybe where we're thinking about leaving a key to somebody.
Hmm.
We're there with the groups. We actually have a room that we take. It's a large enough building where we're out of everybody's way.
Hmm.
We're there because groups have left in the middle of the night.
Hmm. Okay.
Sometimes
It,
they tear down the stairs screaming. They go out the front door. Sometimes you're lucky to catch the last vehicle leaving. you know, it's. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but
right.
those moments when they do, the screaming, the freak out moments, what I
Hmm.
call them, they're they're crazy.
Right. Do you think there's a particular culprit that's the that's the main reason, or you think it's different spirits?
It's hard. Different spirits,
Okay.
different things happening. I think it has to do with the chemistry of the teams, the different
Okay.
groups that come. Some groups are perfectly fine in there, and other groups just totally get freaked out.
Yeah. 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 And I understand that too. I think some people are a little bit more jumpy, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and whether they should be or not, who knows? But I think
Well, I
just some
mean,
people. Yeah.
we've had some diehard investigators
Mhm.
in there. I've had people from television that have been in there,
Mhm.
and things have happened to them.
Mhm.
And when you hear their comments, you know how many places they've been in, and then they're describing an event that just happened to you, happened to them, and inside your building. Kind of makes you chuckle inside, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, this building is pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah. What's some of the best evidence you've either caught or you've seen from other teams?
Apparitions.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We get a lot of shadow figures, a lot of different things.
Mhm.
Uh, Several years ago, and this episode actually made Fright Club. One of our guests, Shelly, was upstairs, and she went upstairs to the back area where a lot of stuff happens. And she was just back there taking pictures, and she took like a succession of, I guess, like 8 to 10 pictures, one after the other, just aiming down the hallway. Well, right as she was taking the pictures, she started hearing some really weird voices, noises, and then she saw something flutter across the hall as she was snapping her pictures. So she's just, she's going like that with her camera. Couldn't visually really see anything, but it just looked really strange, like some movement. Well, inside in her pictures from the beginning picture, there was nothing, and all of a sudden you get to the middle picture, and there is a black shadow figure standing right in the middle of the hallway, looking like it's wearing a duster, looking like it has a cowboy hat on, and it looked like it was holding a weapon.
Oh.
And it's a very clear black dark shadow, very pretty distinguished.
Hmm.
And she sent that evidence into Fright Club, and it made the episode.
That's pretty nice. I
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. Um, I have to ask you too. Do you are all the spirits you think roughly the same time period?
No, I think it's all different time.
Okay.
The building's been around for 140 years.
Hmm.
Tell you a little more history. It was called the Park Hotel when we got it. We started doing research at that point. The past owner had told us that it had been in her family since 1922,
Oh wow.
off and on, but most of that time, I think it had some other owners, but the family acquired it again. So there were like five generations of her family in that building, and so she had a lot of history to tell us. But the problem was there was a lot of history she just didn't know,
Yeah.
and we started digging things up from everything she had told us. And we thought it'd only been one hotel because that's all she ever mentioned was Park Hotel, Park Hotel, Park Hotel. We found out it was three other hotels before it became the Park Hotel. It was the Seacrest Hotel, then it
Mhm.
became the Three Sisters Hotel, then it became the Royal Hotel, and then it became the Park Hotel in 1920.
Okay.
So it already gone through a lot of transitions. It was also highly rumored to have been the first school in Ballinger. It's also rumored that court might have been held in our building
Mhm.
before they were building the actual courthouse.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, the history of Ballinger is really unique because it was formed by the railroad company, the Gulf, Colorado, and Santa Fe Railroad Company that was branching across Texas. It started in Galveston, and they were going diagonally all the way across the state towards Santa Fe. So everyone that knew this rail line was coming through wanted it because that was big business. And a town, a county seat just north of Ballinger, which was called Runnels City at the time, thought they had this railroad. They thought it was going to go through their area. And Runnels City sat about 10 miles north of Ballinger. And back then it wasn't Ballinger, it was Hutchins. Remember what I mentioned to you? It's
Right.
that little settlement. Um, the railroad decided because this little settlement of Hutchins sat on the Colorado River, the railroad decided that we're going to go down to this little settlement and we're going to create Ballinger and we're going to create this metropolis, big big town. Yes, what they were looking to do. I even read little comments that they were supposedly trying to make the next Dallas in West Texas. What's their goal? And Little Ballinger now is only 3,000 people, but back in the day, it grew. It was growing because a lot of people just came. They advertised it like crazy.
Mhm.
Um, it said they had a huge auction right across from our building, right across the street where the courthouse stands. And it said that anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 people were standing out there in 1886 doing this auction.
Oh wow.
So that's a lot of people. It'd be
Yeah.
a lot of people now standing out there.
Yeah. Definitely for sure.
Yeah. So it shows you the popularity. Um, this Ballinger doesn't look like much now, but it is a great looking old West town.
Right.
And that little town had 13 saloons in it at one point. It also had as many as three brothels.
Oh
And
wow.
our building had a brothel in it.
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
two brothels in
Yeah.
it.
I was gonna say that usually comes with the territory, right?
It comes with the territory, and we don't even get shocked saying it anymore because that's just the way the old West was. I mean, the town had like 13 saloons, so They had to
Yeah.
have brothels,
Right.
that just
Yeah.
went with the saloons, you
Yeah.
know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 That's just the way it was back then.
that's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Something else I wanted to ask you when we're talking about like evidence, as far as like equipment comes or goes, is there any like best equipment for that hotel? It seems like it's a pretty active place. Can a person just show up by themselves and gonna get some activity?
Everybody, honestly, who comes investigates the place differently.
Mhm.
Um, we have some teams that bring in massive amounts of camera equipment,
Right.
set it all up. We have no restrictions with everybody do what they want to do,
Right.
approach it how they want to approach. I'll be honest with you though, I'm actually pretty old school.
Right.
I tend to believe that if you bring in too much stuff, you're going to scare them away.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm almost like it's the same idea with Bigfoot. If
Right.
you run into the woods with all sorts of equipment,
Yeah.
which
Right.
might be great, to capture, you're probably going to scare them off.
Right. Yeah, you know what? When I go do my Bigfoot stuff, I've got a digital recorder and
Yeah,
I've got my cell phone,
there
and
you
that's
go.
like the only thing. I mean, I do have cameras with night vision,
Yeah.
you know, but it's just too much for me to carry, and I'd rather have that, you
Well,
know.
you got to think Bigfoot, their eyesight is probably much better than ours in the dark.
Hmm.
Um, if you're out there with different types of infrared, whatever you're using out there to try to see them,
Yeah.
they're probably going to see that. They're going
Right.
to see
Yeah.
those optics. They're going to
Yeah.
know exactly where you're at.
Right. Yeah. 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 And I would be kind of old school too, I think, and it's like you said too. Just I think it's just too much equipment sometimes.
Yeah,
But and that's fine if people want to lug all that equipment around. By all means, do it. Right.
yeah.
That's just not me.
I mean, you can bring. We've had every type of paranormal equipment in our building,
Mm,
and it all produces different results.
right.
I'll be honest with you. I like the portal spirit boxes.
Okay. Do you? Okay.
They bring a lot of good evidence out of our
Mm,
place.
yeah.
People get some incredible responses coming through.
Mhm.
Those seem to work pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a spirit box right here behind me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I think it's great. I used it at the cemetery a few weeks ago. It was pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I just created something new at the old park. It's called
Yeah, I
the
wanted to ask you
box.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the box, and it is a split. Let me pull up my notes here.
Hmm.
It's a split Estes method and Gansfield experiment method.
Okay.
Gansfield was an old experiment dealing with ping pong balls put over the eyes, and
Right.
you're supposed to be sitting in a room environment, isolated, with a red light, blinking light, and you're supposed to see things basically through the ping pong balls.
Okay.
Very neat experiment. A lot of evidence. Then you have the Estes method,
Hmm.
which was developed in Estes Park. And normally you have two people. You have one with headphones on, the other person asking questions. Well, our device is different. The box. It's an isolation method. You're using actual Gansfield goggles, Delco goggles, which go over the eyes, blinking red, so you can't see what's around you when you're in this. When you're in the box,
Hmm.
you're sitting in a chair. You have a spirit box hooked up to your headphones, and it's a dual spirit box, so you can do a forward or reverse at the same time. So you can't hear anything that's going on around you. You can't see anything. Well, I have some cards that were developed by a friend of mine, Chad Wandell of Ghost Geeks, and these are Estes cards. And what he's done, and anybody can buy these, you can contact him. He's on Facebook and everything. Um, these cards actually have sentences written on the cards.
Okay.
So what we've done with the box is there's four cameras in the box, including a camera that's down by the chair where your hand is. You draw the cards one by one, and you hold the card in front of the camera where the viewers in the we have another system set up downstairs where the viewers can watch and they can see what the sentence is, but the person that's doing the session has no clue what's on that card. They hold it there for 10 to 15 seconds. They can even hold it out in front of them. They can hold it in front of the camera. Then we listen to see what comes through
Mhm.
on the headphones. They're supposed to say anything that they hear,
Right.
just like the S's method. It's already producing great results. We
I
did
was
it
going to
this
ask you that.
weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. Had a friend do it. It's unbelievable. We both felt like somebody was in the room with us at the time,
Mhm.
uh, even though he was downstairs when I was doing my session. Somebody actually bumped my chair. So I'm in the chair with the headphones on, with the goggles. I couldn't hear, I couldn't see, and somebody bumped my darn chair. I just about came out of that chair like you won't believe, because it was like somebody was standing next to the chair,
Yeah.
and I could feel the whole chair move with my weight.
Hmm.
So it's going to be talked about. It's something new.
Mhm.
It's something I felt like I wanted to add, and I just feel like it's going to be talked about.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Can you give us an example of what one of the cards said and what response you got?
Well, things like let's see. I'm trying to think. There was one. One said, "Did you die here?"
Mhm.
And when I held up the card, I couldn't see what it was, but Jeremy was watching, and all of a sudden I heard the name Peter come through. So I yelled, "Peter!" Well, that's what the card was showing. Did you die here? So that's, a possibility of a link there. Now
Right.
there was another one where I think it said, "Can you change the temperature on the card?"
Mhm.
So while I was holding the card to the camera, the whole room, actually my whole left side started getting really cold. It started getting so cold that my left arm and my shoulder started hurting. So I'm making all these comments. Of course, I have the goggles on. I can't hear anything, and I'm just making these verbal comments about how cold I am and how my left arm's hurting. And the whole time I'm holding that card, and it says, "Can you change the temperature?"
That is pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's even better than a verbal response.
it's very good. Let's just say
Yeah.
there were a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I can't remember all of them. I made a video of it. It's on the Facebook page if anybody wants to watch.
Mhm.
It was incredible.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. We're coming up towards the end of the show, so I want to give you an opportunity to talk about what you guys actually do as far as tours or letting people come over there or
Yeah.
events that you guys hold.
We do mainly primarily overnight groups. It's only 350 for a group to stay, very reasonable. We have good sleeping accommodations. We have like nine and a half bedrooms that people can sleep in.
Well,
So you can actually have a small group, large group. It just depends what you want to bring. We always tell people, if you bring a large group, just make sure you're responsible for finding all the places for them to sleep. So
mhm,
we tell people, don't bring too large a group.
mhm.
Um, 350 basically, we book out way ahead. We book out about 6 months in advance. So like right now, I'm already pretty much booked all the way into summer.
Okay.
So our dates go really fast. We also do a lot of great events. We have Ghost Brothers coming back in September. So Ghost Brothers going to be doing another event there. We also have a huge Paracon next month on April 12th, April 13th, called West Tex Paracon. And we have a lot of great celebrities. We have Heather Taddy, who's been on several paranormal shows, including Paranormal State, Alien Highway. We also have Chad Lindbergh coming. He was in Fast and Furious. He's done a lot of paranormal shows. He was on the television show Supernatural. Chad loves the paranormal. So they're going to guide our ghost hunts for all the guests
Nice.
next month. Yeah, him and Heather. And then we have a lot of other great guests. We have a lot of great UFO. We have great speakers. So I tell everybody, if you want to come out to Ballinger, April 12th, April 13th next month, West Tex Paracon. It's a great opportunity. It's a lot of fun, a lot of different things to do.
Well, cool beans. And real quick, I know we wanted to ask a trivia question, and it
Yes,
should be very easy because you said the answer.
you're
How
right.
many? Yeah, how
Right.
many? So whoever gets the question right, you'll get a book of your choice written by Mr. Dan here. Just get in contact with me. I'll send it to you right away. But so the question is, how many spirits are in the Old Park Hotel? First one to get it, you'll win. So we'll wait a few minutes to see who gets that. Um, so yeah, so do you yourself hold any kind of like events, like just private events for people, or
We do. We realize not everybody has a group, and a lot of people can't afford the. Oh, there's our first person.
yeah, good deal. It's
Uh,
easy. Yeah.
yeah, we realize we get all calibers of paranormal people. We get what we consider families, amateurs,
Mm.
and a lot of times they may not have equipment. They might not have the money, the 350, which just it's a very affordable price, but not everybody can
Yeah.
afford that even,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So me and Connie decided several years ago to start doing what we call overnight paranormal lockdowns, where we just splice them in every once in a while, and they're
Mhm.
$50 a person,
Okay.
and they get a room, they get to stay overnight, and we provide snacks, drinks, and we bust out all our paranormal equipment,
Oh, nice.
and then they
Well,
get to
that's pretty
use.
good of you guys to do that
Right.
too.
Then they get to use it.
Yeah.
So we show them how to use it. We take them on investigation. We also watch a great movie. We sit back and watch a great horror movie, paranormal movie to get it. We have a big screen, so it
Yeah.
gets them in the mood, and then they go off and do their own thing for the rest of the night. And
Mhm.
I would say that's a pretty good deal for $50 a person. So
Dude, that's a great deal. That's a great
yeah,
deal.
yeah,
Um, then something else I wanted to ask you too. I know you're busy there. You're like,
yeah.
that's it. But if you could go anywhere and investigate, where would you want to go?
My bucket list paranormal. I've always wanted to go Trans Allegheny,
Yeah, popular
the
place there.
lunatic asylum. I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
That place. That's at the top of my list.
Mhm.
Um, Years ago, I did the Stanley years ago in Estes
Oh,
Park. I know everybody wants to go to the Stanley.
right.
What's funny is I was walking around in there as a teenage boy back in the day, right after Stephen King was there,
Yeah,
and I just knew that place was haunted.
yeah.
They weren't even talking about it back then, and I
Mhm.
already knew it was haunted. It was just spooky as heck. I've been to the Myrtles Plantation. That's a great place. Um, the Hinsdale House. That is one. My friend Dan Class owns that up in New York,
Okay.
and I've wanted to see his place for a long time.
Yeah,
So hopefully someday I'll get up there.
yeah. I had an opportunity to go there, but I actually wound up going to go see my granddaughter for the first time. So I
Yeah,
had, that she took precedence.
yeah.
So,
There's more places.
yeah.
Me and my wife want to get an RV
Hmm.
at some point, and we just want to travel and knock out some of these places. But
Yeah.
have an RV it gets expensive staying in hotels and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yes, sir. Well, Mr. Dan, I do thank you. You want to give out any contact information if people want to reach you or how to find the old
Yeah,
park?
very easy actually. Several different ways. You can just Google Old Park. You can Google my name. You'll find a lot of information just by doing that. But our website is www.oldparkhotel.com. Old with an e on it. Um, we are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on X. So we're on all the platforms. Uh, there's just a lot of information out there. Googling is probably the best way
Hmm.
because you'll find everything, including the books.
Yeah.
Because all the books are on Amazon. Um, Trying to think what else. We're actually very easy to find. We
Yeah.
really are. It's not hard find the information. We've had so many people out there. So many people have done reviews of the place. Many different episodes on YouTube done by different people. We were on show with Nick Roth a few years ago, Death Walker.
Mhm.
Very good episode that people can watch. It's right out there for free, for people to see.
Well, cool beans, man. Like I said, thanks a lot for doing the show. I do appreciate it.
Yes.
And yeah, you ever have anything you want me to promote for you, just tag me in it and I'll promote it for you
Oh
too,
yeah,
brother.
great,
Yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah. Anytime,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
With that being said, everybody
Maybe,
have a
maybe I'll
great.
go out Bigfoot hunting with you one day.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. We'll put that RV to use in the Sam Houston Forest.
Right? I mean
Yeah.
that Connie would be right with me. I guarantee you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, cool. And yeah, anyone have if you guys can't reach Dan for whatever reason, hit me up.
Okay.
I'll message them too for you guys. But
Okay.
yeah, man, thanks a lot for doing the show. And
Yes.
everybody have a great night. I have a show next Sunday also. And you'll love this young lady, man. She's a great person. She does like remote, she does astral traveling. That's what she does. So that's what I'll have on. And Dan, hold on real quick.
Okay.
Everybody else, you guys have a great night.